You're welcome.
All right. Take it away, Maurice.
Well, welcome everyone to our 2023 mid-year meeting. This is the third year of our mid-year meeting. And the reason for this is that we felt that we wanted to make sure that we stayed in connection with our members throughout the year. You know, we have the annual meeting. We're trying to make sure that we had opportunities to connect and engage throughout the year and not be 100% focused on just the annual meeting. So the mid-year meeting serves as an opportunity for members to come together to have this informal network exchange, and as well as hear from other colleagues about what they're currently working on. So it's a nice platform to just have a semi-formal connection and connect with individuals. So thank you all for coming today. And we are gonna have a great agenda that Shannon has put together for us today. So next slide. I can't do it on my end. You might need to, sorry, excuse me. While we're figuring that out, I'll just give, I think the next slide is a housekeeping slide. So just as a reminder, if folks can have their phones on mute during the time. And if you want to really have a comment, please feel free to raise your hand during the presentation moments of our slide decks today. But while we have our more informal moments, you can definitely unmute and chat. So this just helps to make sure that we are connecting. We welcome the use of the chat and sharing your thoughts on the chat as well. If you want to submit questions, and again, use the emojis that's available to share your fellow expressions that you want to try convey during this meeting as well. So all avenues are open to you. Next slide. So again, I am Maurice Johnson. I am the chair of the Community Health Planning and Policy Development section, and Shannon Nix is our chair-elect. Next. So for those who are not familiar with our section, the Community Health Planning and Policy Development section is I would like to say we're a pretty all-encompassing section, a cross-cutting section where we look to put together the grassroots advocacy work that happens on the ground with the more macro perspective of policy and building that bridge. But we also are about finding a way to connect with individuals, bringing communities together, from health professionals, businesses, and government. We're all one community, and making sure that everyone has a voice in developing policy and action on the ground. Next slide. So just want to give you a few updates. We had about what we've done in the past year. We had a town hall in February that provided an opportunity for members to, again, learn about our section. We had a little networking opportunities for individuals, and people learned about opportunities to engage our section. And I'll be sure to provide links following my talk that gives you access to our YouTube page, which captures not only this town hall, but other previous CHPPD events throughout the past couple of years, including, next slide, we had our National Public Health Week, when we had a series of events focused on various themes, and a couple of our presentations led by primarily led by our student members of our section, provided some talks on various topics on this area. And again, I'll share that YouTube link in the chat momentarily. Next slide. I want to give a reminder to those that the annual meeting is in Atlanta this year. The registration link has opened up. Our section will have over 56 oral and poster scientific sessions this year. A couple more than from last year, but we have various topics focused on community health, engaging policies, health equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and accessibility concepts, building engagement and capacity, social justice, just a litany of events or topics throughout the year. At the annual meeting each year, we also host a Day of Action event, which we're currently planning. I don't have the data to share with you now, but I know the topic will be on maternal health. So stay tuned for more information on that. The dates is November 12th through 15th. The day of action, we don't have the exact date right now. We're still in planning. The idea behind the day of action event is it's over 10 years now. We wanted to make sure that when we go to a city that we found a way to engage the community that we're there. And we've hosted various types of events throughout the years. We've in volunteer events, we've worked at we've participated at a food bank in the past. We've done advocacy for Medicaid expansion when we were in New Orleans. Last year in Massachusetts, we wanted to help with the support of a policy that helped expand transportation for individuals in another policy, providing an equitable perspective to transportation and access to care. And so each year we host an event, and this year is going to be in the concept of maternal health. What the exact advocacy action will be, we're still in planning. We're working with the Georgia Public Health Foundation on this work this year. And so stay tuned. You'll probably hear more on this in the August, September range. We're connected to the annual meeting. Next slide. We are, actually, no, I'll get back to that. I also want to remind folks to please stay tuned for our community health planning. The APHA elections are going to be happening. You'll see an email about that probably next week. The ballots will be opening, I believe, on June 29th. And then you'll be able to cast for electors in our section until July 27th. You'll receive communication sometime next week with an update about the candidates that we have for our section this year. So please stay tuned. But I just want to, remind folks that if they can, please share your, get involved in the section, and one way to share your voice and be involved is to actually vote. So I just want to share that as well. Next slide. The dates for the annual meeting is November 12th through 15th. Again. And so connected to the annual meeting, we are hosting, or we'll be offering scholarships again this year. This year, we'll offering 14 travel scholarships to those to attend the meeting, and the scholarships are meant to cover the early bird registration fees for individuals. We'll be offering 10 student scholarships, 3 early career retirement professional scholarships, and 1 regular membership scholarship this year. I'll provide a link to this when I'm done talking as well, where you can see, get access to the form to apply. Applications will be due on July 7th, and we'll notify folks by July 14th. Sorry. We'll notify folks by July 14th whether they received the scholarship, so they have time to register and take advantage of the early bird registration fee. Next slide, please. And Gina, I see that you have your hand. You might need to unmute.
Yes, I just want to make sure that the deadline on there was the 7th. And I just wanted to clarify with you that you would still be willing to accept applications today or at the latest tomorrow or something like that.
So it's for July 7th. I'm sorry if it said June 7th. I meant to say July 7th.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I might have been wrong on the slide. I'm not going to say.
No, and you probably weren't. Okay.
Related to our scholarships, one of the primary reason we're able to provide these scholarships to our members is because of donations from individuals like you. This QR code will direct you to our fundraising page, but I'll also provide a direct link following my conversation as well. But please, we are always looking to provide opportunities for individuals. Our goal is 3,000 this year, but we also think about it as if every individual of our section gave $20.23, would be well way of funding scholarships for the next 3 years. And so please, if you can, anything you can give back to our section would be helpful, as we like to make sure that we give it back. We like to pay it forward to individuals, particularly our students and young professionals. Next slide. And I just wanted to provide this note and from one of our recipients in 2021. I'm not going to read it directly. Folks can read themselves. Actually, no, I will read it. Attending APHA through the CHPPD scholarship opportunity has been invaluable to building my career as a public health student. It has offered me numerous networking opportunities, both within and outside of the section, and helped me to build skills in self-marketing and communication. To be a part of such a richly collaborative and spirited section has been a truly impactful experience as I grow my profile in this field. And again, that was from a student scholarship a couple of years ago. And we really appreciate these words and want to make sure that folks see that. And Gina, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that when you make your donation to APHA, specify in the somewhere on the check that it's for CHPPD, because that's the more likely way that it will get into the scholarship fund, which is for me. I specify mine, not only CHPPD, but also to CHPPD, I specify scholarships. Thank you.
Thank you. And the link that I will provide will actually give you a direct link to CHPPD. APHA updated their website a couple years ago to help reduce the confusion that folks who are from our section were giving, but we weren't seeing those funds on our side. It also provides an opportunity that you can provide regular donations, so it doesn't have to be one time. You can make it so that you can, make it be quarterly, monthly, or whatever regular schedule that you would like to set that up. So again, please take advantage of that opportunity. And I am actually closing and providing all the links that I've shared, if my computer will let me do that. And sorry for the spacing as I was copying from Word and putting it into the chat. But you'll see the link to our YouTube page, fundraising, as well as the scholarship application in the chat right now. Next slide, please. And I just want to give a nod and thank you to our leadership team. The work that we do wouldn't happen if it wasn't for all the volunteers here. They make our section look great, and I always appreciate everyone's dedicated time. Again, we are all volunteers. We're all, have a passion for public health and see this section as an opportunity to give back. And so even with this program today, we thank all our volunteers for taking their time to give back and provide an insight and help lead our section. And again, please pay attention to the elections that take place this coming month, or we'll see the link. APHA will send your individualized link later this month, and please take advantage to vote. But next slide. Being an elected leader is not the only way to engage our section. We have various opportunities to engage our section through committees, work group chair opportunities. We have various committees. You'll hear from Jeannie in a few about our membership committee and how to engage. We have a policy committee that's currently working on developing a late breaker policy. We have a program committee that we need volunteers to help with being moderators for our sessions at the meeting. But as well as we need booth volunteers at the meeting. We have an awards recognition event that takes place that we want to have volunteers help with. So all the work that happens is really because of the time and dedication that you all can give back. And so whatever you can give, we really appreciate what you can help with helping our section thrive. And with that, thank you. I will pass it to Shannon.
Okay, so I am actually going to hand it off to Jeannie, and she is going to share a little bit about what our membership committee does here for our section and how they work with all of you all to keep you involved in the section and what we do to serve our APHA community and the community as a whole. So Jeannie, I'll turn it over to you. You should be able to take control and share your slides as well.
Okay. Let's see if we can get it into presentation mode. There we go. Wow, we did it. So thank you all. It's great to be here. It's exciting to see some faces, some familiar faces and some new faces. And so I'm co-chair of the membership committee, although I think of it as the member engagement committee because that's really what our responsibility.
Jeannie, I'm sorry, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
You might want to hold your mic. I think there's an interference when you're speaking. It has like a quick static, and I think if you hold it and just keep it stable, it might help.
How's that? Is that going to be better?
It's a little better, but I think it might just be your headset itself.
Yeah. Well, I could take the headset off if it's really hard for people to understand. Would people like me to try to do that?
Do you mind? It might help it.
Okay, let's see. Okay, now are you able to hear me?
That is better, I think.
That is better. Okay, great. My poor spouse will just have to put up with listening to me jabber. Okay, so let me go back up here. Okay, so there are two of us who are co-chairing this committee. Ave Yakubu, who could not be here today. You know, Ave is typical of public health workers. She's working full-time to finish her PhD. She is also working full-time as the research and evaluation manager of Nurturally, perinatal equity and wellness organization in Oregon. And so, of course, Ave is in flight from Oregon back to St. Louis to be working on her PhD at the same time that she's working full-time in Oregon. And so she couldn't join us today, but she is a co-chair with me. Many of you know me, but I am a retired public health nurse. I have been focusing, I retired from a paycheck about 10 years ago. And since that time, I have been focused on governance and strategic planning. I've facilitated strategic planning with about 20 of the state affiliates, working with North Dakota in the next couple of months. So I'm finding that to be a lot of fun and very interesting. I'm a past president of my affiliate, and I've been on the Council of Affiliates and the executive board for APHA. And once I finished my executive board term, I said, well, now I have a little bit of time. I'll jump onto CHPPD leadership team, and that's been a fun thing for me to do. I'm also a FAB site visitor and really loving being able to contribute to public health in that way. And I'm a grandmother of 8. I love to go rock climbing and camping. I do some sewing. I'm in a recorder ensemble and a singing ensemble, and I like to do sewing and art and fabric art. It would be really fun to get to know a lot of you in this way about being a grandmother, or what music you play, or what sewing you do, or what hobbies you have. And so maybe at annual meeting we'll have a little more time to get into that kind of knowing each other. Okay. So our committee charge is to facilitate members to engage with the section, and with each other, which is why I talk about it being the member engagement committee. The Ave and I have been engaging with new members to orient them to the section. We send out a new member letter and try to draw them into activities. We work to develop engagement opportunities throughout the year. We work to assist other committees to include engagement in their events. And then we are responsible for designing and managing the section booth at annual meeting. For engaging new members, we send them a welcome letter. We send out a letter every month to everybody who's newly joined the section. And in that letter, we offer to meet with them personally if they want more information or want to get acquainted. And we've had 3 or 4 people over the course of the last 6 months who have taken us up on that. And it's been fun to, have a Zoom meeting with a new member and say, this is what the section is all about. This is what APHA is all about, and really try to pull them in. If you have suggestions on what we can do to draw new members into the section, put them in the chat. I'll take every suggestion you can possibly think of, and we'll see what we can do to implement them. We've been trying to find engagement opportunities throughout the year. This year we instituted what we are calling the question of the month on LEAD. So we've had a question, let's see, I think we started in March. So we had March, April, May, June. If you have suggestions for questions, interesting questions, the first one we asked was, what ignites your passion about community public health? We also would ask that you not only respond to these questions when they come out on LEAD, but that you engage with each other on these questions. So sometimes we have a question that lots of people answer, and sometimes people don't seem to really connect to the question. At any rate, if you have an idea for a question, put it in the chat. We try to design some activities during these virtual meetings. So when you joined the meeting, you saw that we were having a conversation about whom we'd like to invite to dinner. Again, we're open to all suggestions for engagement during virtual meetings, which I think sometimes more challenging than the in-person meetings. We've talked over the course of the last 3 months, and it's been suggested over and over again that we host a periodic lunch and learn or happy hour or a meet and eat or some kind of virtual meeting. And we've loved the idea. Ave and I simply don't have the capacity to do that. We certainly could lead a couple of other people in implementing this. So if you think this would, I don't think there's any doubt that this is a great idea. If you think you have some time to give to it and can help us get this organized for the last 6 months of this year, volunteer in the chat. I'll follow up with you after this meeting. Okay. And then we are supposed to design and manage the section booth for the APHA annual meeting. This is the booth in the expo hall. We try to staff that booth for the periods when the expo hall is open. So we need you to volunteer to staff the booth. You can volunteer in the chat, or we'll be sending out information probably in October, calling again for volunteers. We'd also like to hear from you about your ideas of how to engage attendees. So, you know, it can get a little bit boring just kind of sitting at the booth, twiddling your thumbs and hoping that somebody will stop by. So if you have ideas for ways that we can engage people as they're walking past the CHPPD booth, please, you know, throw them in the chat. And then, of course, like I've been saying all along, we're going to recruit volunteers to help implement those ideas. So if you have ideas, if you want to volunteer, please let us know through the chat, or you can email me separately and I'll put my email in the chat after I finish my presentation. So that's all I have for you right now. At the end of the meeting, we are going to split into breakout rooms to be able to have a little bit more informal conversation. So I'm going to give you a sneak preview. You will be able to choose what room you go to. We'll have a room where you talk about how you take care of yourself. Others to talk about what hacks you've found that help you organize your work. I will be in a room to talk about what are the leadership opportunities in the section in APHA, what those opportunities and responsibilities look like. We'll have a room that talks about that question of what ignites your passion about working in the community, in community public health. And we'll have one for you to share what your greatest accomplishment in public health has been so far, or what you've not accomplished that you still hope to accomplish. Or you can join the room that says, what have you learned from engaging in community-focused public health? So that's the sneak preview. And at the end of this meeting, stay tuned to be able to jump into one of those breakout rooms and share with your colleagues about those. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll turn it back over to Shannon, I assume, to continue the meeting.
Yeah. And we have a few minutes for questions for Jeannie. If any of you have questions about the work that the committee is doing or how you can be more involved in our section. So I will open the floor. Feel free to put questions in the chat or unmute yourselves and ask your questions.
And we do have a couple of comments in the chat, such as Erin saying she can volunteer for any of those areas. We have Isabelle, we should have a steward corpse-like booth to engage people in sharing what it means to work in public health in this moment. We also had a comment, thank you for a wonderful meeting and warm introduction. And they had to leave. Daniela, great suggestion to Isabella.
Ingina wants to tell us something. Go ahead, Ingina.
I sent something directly to Jeannie. I'm sorry I didn't send it to everyone. And it was wondering if we could better organize mentoring opportunities for our section members, especially at different phases of their public health careers. I know that we have something in place for students or people just post being a student and stepping out. But I think about those people in our section who are maybe thinking about a second job, or they're mid-career, or they're trying to decide whether to retire or not. I just wonder if there's a way that we could better formalize. I think that one of the things we're most noted for is our mentoring. So I'm not taken away from that. I'm just wondering if we can organize it so that we reach people at different phases in their careers, since we're so large.
As opposed to just using the general APHA mentor match that is.
Yes. One of the things we used to be really noted for, so I'm a 40+ year member of APHA, and one of the things we used to be most noted for, which is one of them, is the mentoring that took place, both mentoring for within APHA, but mentoring in careers and job opportunities, and, you know, which is a more intense involvement in mentoring if you're working with someone who is just trying to think about their career, still in school or just post-school. And then there are mid-career people. And we did it informally, but we've gotten so big that I wonder if we have dropped it, or whether we could just organize it slightly more. And I say that as a retiree who is so totally overextended that I need to be saying no to people. But I guess I would be willing to, oh, my wife will kill me, to co-chair that effort with somebody younger who's willing. I'm not a digital person. I'm 77. I'm old. And I love that laughing that somebody has put up. I love it because I mean it that way. But it's one of the most incredible things about our section is that maybe there could be a little team of us that would be willing to be responsive to people that it could be a subcommittee within our section in which people could say, I'm available as a mentor, or I need a little mentoring around, and then a place for them to write a specific thing. And then those of us who are willing to mentor could, anyway, I'm not sure how to do it. I just know that it's something that we've done in the past. We've done it well. It wasn't organized, but it wasn't needed to be organized. But I think we're the second or third largest section now. Ooh, hooray for us. So I just want us to do a little bit of work in that area.
Let me do a little bit of digging on whether there's a way to do it through the mentor match in LEAD, whether we can limit that they would choose specifically CHPPD, and CHPPD members would, rather than trying to create another system.
Right. I was just talking about within our section.
Yeah, but there may be a way to do it within LEAD that is just specific.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. Oh, sorry. Go right ahead.
Hi, Gina. It's Padma, right? So this is a very common, concern in so many different sectors, not just in public health, right? When you work with multi-generational workforce. So when you work with multi-generational workforce, you are going to find people at different entry level in their career, and people at a very high level in their career, and also people with a different skill set, right? Somebody technically savvy, somebody at the beginning of their technology, or somebody who just don't want to have technology because they have inhibitions or their own barriers. So there are various ways in which you can do this mentor-mentee matchup, right? And not just in terms of technology or in terms of skills, but you can also do the matching in terms of career advancement, in terms of where they are in their career, right? So if we are interested in matching something to that level and how you wanted to do this mentor-mentee relationship and how you wanted to do it, or how often we wanted to do it, we can create a tailored program and we can do like a pilot and test it out before we roll out a bigger program. Because I mean, I think many industries have tried it where they have actual employers with a multi-generational workforce. So we can take one such model and we can try it out.
So these are exciting ideas, but would require quite a bit more capacity than the leadership team currently has. As I said, I will look into how we might do it through LEAD with a more targeted or focused thing, and then we can continue to talk about ways to make that happen. Other questions, other comments? Are we ready to move on?
Great. Well, I think we will keep it moving. Thank you so much, Jeannie, and thanks everybody for your questions and comments. We
Before we
appreciate that.
move on, I just wanted to plug that there was a member who said that they joined and didn't get an official welcome letter. I didn't want to miss that comment.
Thank you, Deja. I've responded directly to that person.
Thank you, Deja, so much for helping to monitor the chat. We appreciate you. All right, so I am going to go back to sharing our screen and keep us moving. We are ready to jump into our speaker presentations for the day. And let me see if I can do this again. I'm going to have to do this again. Okay. Stop sharing and then share again. Actually get the right one. Okay, here we go. All right. Can everybody see the PowerPoint again appropriately this time?
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, so I just want to take a quick moment to introduce our speakers for today. So on the listing here, we have Isabelle Barbour, Russell Miller, Rebecca Mintle, Haper-Grace Neidermeyer, Alexandra Gacuya, Cynthia Williams, and Megan Bhatti. I have their bios, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through and read all of those. I will pop them into the chat as each one of them comes to speak, but I will take the time to show you their pictures. So this is Isabelle, this is Russell, this is Rebecca, this is Haper-Grace, this is Alexandra, Cynthia, and Megan. So with that, I am going to give us all a quick 5-minute break, but I want to plug our fundraising again. So if you have it within your means and your willingness to take a few moments and help us raise some funds to support the students and early career professionals to get them to our annual meeting, we would very much appreciate that. When we come back from our quick 5-minute break, we will begin our first set of speakers with Isabelle, Russell, and Rebecca. So quick 5-minute break and we will be back here at 1:50.
Gina, should we expect you in Atlanta this year? No.
But of course.
Just making sure.
Oh my God, I just, and you know,
It wouldn't be
Atlanta
annual
was-
meeting without Ingina.
Atlanta was the place where Billy and I were going to move 3 years ago, just when COVID hit. So I met her in Atlanta, and that was 34 years ago. So she's been up north with me for 34 years. So I'm feeling guilty that
Her turn.
and when she wants to go back home, that I'm still being resistant. But if Stacy had won the governorship, I would have gone. I'm telling you, Georgia and Florida are just a mess right now, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
I don't.
What did you say, Jeannie? I
I
didn't
said
hear
it
you.
wouldn't be annual meeting without you,
Oh, right.
right?
Thank you. I'm so happy that we
Maurice.
have so many people from Africa in our, I can tell by their last names, in our section. Woo!
Maurice, quick question for you. Can you make Isabelle a co-host? I,
Yes.
for some reason, am not able to do so. I don't know if we have.
You know what? I'm gonna take a two-step. I will make you again host. And then you should now have the power to do it yourself.
Okay, awesome.
And then
Yep, there we go.
I, for some reason, am not able to see those in the waiting room anymore. So you'll have to take an active part of
Okay,
that one.
I can do that. No worries. All right, Isabelle, you are now a co-host. So whenever you are ready to start sharing your screen.
Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Right, I am going to pop Isabelle's bio into the chat, and I will turn it over to Isabelle to share her presentation with us. Thank you so much for being with us, Isabelle.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. I'm Isabelle Barbour. Hi, thanks, Angina. I've worked in public health for over 20 years at all different levels, and I'm now working as a consultant. And something that I've been very engaged in as part of my community work has been storytelling as a way to both address individual healing and to build community and understanding. So I wanted to tell you about that today. You know, I had this opportunity from our, I think we had a meeting in December, and I was talking about a radio story that I was sharing, and there was some interest in maybe hearing more. So I am going to talk a little bit about the radio work, which is work that I do as a volunteer and as a storyteller. And then I also do consulting around various issues, including with local public health and others around using storytelling in their work. So with that, I'll get started. I was wondering if I could have maybe 2 volunteers to help me in my presentation. And I see Angina and Jeannie on my screen. So I'm wondering if the 2 of you would be willing to read a quote, I have 2 quotes in my presentation. So Jeannie, would you be willing to read the first one?
Sure.
And Gina, would you be willing to read the second one?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay. So what to expect? I think we're hearing a lot about storytelling, and sometimes when people say storytelling, they mean marketing, and sometimes they mean fiction storytelling. And I just want to be really clear about what I'm talking about. I'm talking about telling true stories where there are some stakes, where there's some change, where there's potential for growth. And this is what you can expect, you know, in my next 9 minutes of presentation. I'm probably going to go very shallow around a range of issues that I think are very important to my approach in how I tell stories and why I tell stories. I would love for folks to put in the chat their interest in storytelling work more generally. I think that we all probably are storytellers in our own way. And if folks are willing, I'd love to know what you think about in terms of maybe coming together to do some storytelling work or any storytelling work that you're doing in your own lives. So I just want to invite that. Okay, so this is my meta slide. This is me on Zoom telling a narrative story, moth style, during the pandemic, while I'm talking about storytelling on another Zoom. But these are all ways of kind of telling a true story. And often a lot of these are used together. So I think a really great example that we see in public health is photo voice, for example, when we're doing community-based work. I've worked with a local public health department here in Connecticut around work they did with survivors from the opioid epidemic. So, you know, the anti-faces of meth, if you will. These are folks that survived and healed, and this is their story. So I think that there's ways that we use storytelling in the work that we do. The words in green, the podcast and audio segment, are going to be some things that I focus on because I've been putting a lot of heart and a lot of energy into that recently, and I want to tell you about it. So Jeannie, you're coming up here, okay? Go for it when you're ready.
we've been working on this nonstop, but you don't hear any pots and pans being banged for us.
Okay, so, I just want to name what we've experienced as a field in the last few years and the trauma of that for many of us. I think that when, just as humans, when we are dealing with a lot of stimulation, trauma, or otherwise, it is really hard to kind of pinpoint what actually happened. Like, what actually happened that made us feel this way? And sometimes storytelling can be a way to externalize a narrative and create a fixed point. When we put something down and have other people hear it, it makes it more real. This is maybe not true for everybody, but I have found this to be something that can help people who are feeling very conflicted, just trying to kind of name the truth. There are multiple truths. We all contain multitudes, right? So which is the one that feels the truest to us? And can we settle ourselves? Can we feel a bit more comfort in our bodies when we name it and when we share it? Okay. And Gina, you're coming up. Whenever you are ready. Oh, you're on mute.
And so the whole point for me was to be on the board was to try to make things better. And instead I was tokenized. There is a real life problem. There is no threat of anti-racism in the school district at all, regardless of what committees they have that say that they're doing this work. It's a lie. And I'll go to my grave saying that it's a lie.
So this is a quote from somebody who became a friend of mine through some storytelling work that I did with her organization. And I want to just take a moment to acknowledge the historical roots of storytelling as a bridging device. John O'Neill did a huge amount of pioneering work in this area in the early 1960s in tenements in New Orleans, really with trying to engage African Americans living there into the civil rights movement, and understanding that these were folks that were so stressed with needs, right, that they were not always able to fully participate in the civil rights movement. So it was a way of gathering perspectives. And I think that, there's been some really good research in public health around people with differing levels of power in society being able to deeply listen to one another. The talking's important, particularly for folks who have less power, but the listening really can make some changes in how we view one another. And there's a lot of work around the facilitation of these spaces that's very important. I don't mean to make it sound simple, but creating safety is something that's very essential prior to doing any kind of storytelling work. And it's something where when I engage with community members, I'm always looking to share something about myself. I really don't expect people to be vulnerable with me if I can't be vulnerable with them. So, I don't ask people to do anything I am not also willing to do. And by modeling that, I think it helps us all know each other. When I do storytelling work, I'm really interested in the process being as important as the output. I want people to feel heard and seen and respected, and I will go a very long way to make that happen. I see that as my job and my work. If anything feels extractive, that is not it. And I think in public health, we have to really think about that, because we can be very extractive in the way that we go through data. We are expected to be extractive often. So, it's just something to think about. All right. How am I doing on time?
It's 10 after.
Okay.
10 after what?
I will just keep going because I don't want to be that person that sets us all back.
You've got about 4 or 5 minutes to go, Isabelle. You're good.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, so this is how I go about the storytelling that I do. I try to be really clear about my purpose. So first of all, showing up and connecting in spaces where there's social justice work going on. I never just cold call people and say, I think I should tell a story about you. I usually am in partnership with people around work, and I say, hey, you know, I think there's so much here. Is this something you want to talk more about? I have an opportunity that I've cultivated with an independent radio station. And people like the idea that what they're doing will be heard by others. So, you know, that's something that I have to offer. And it provides some structure. It's also something where, you know, people then have their story. I don't, you know, it's a Creative Commons license. So that basically means you can use it, just please don't like alter it and sell it, is the idea there. But I never try to own somebody else's story.
Right.
So, I mean, figuring out the details is a huge part of this work. The connection, there's usually a meeting afterwards, identifying what areas are of interest to discuss, who should be there, when, where, and to set and manage expectations. And often people are really nervous. They're nervous about the idea of like a gotcha moment. And I'm really clear, and you can kind of see this in the last box, I'm a storyteller, not a journalist. I don't engage people because I want to do something and prove something. I want to support the elevation of stories that are often overlooked. And I'm in a part of Connecticut where the local media is very weak. And so there are bad actors who are at play, and they are not called out or called in. So this got started for me in working with community-based organizations and feeling like they were doing amazing work against very tall odds. And if we could just put some air and light around what they were doing, would that matter? And so I asked them, and they were excited about it, and I pursued it. And so I've been doing that kind of for about almost a year now. So it's been really, really great. The editing and producing are a really huge part. That's why they're in bold. I do work. I use a program called Hindenburg to do the audio. I try to add other elements to add interest. And so, you know, and I stay in contact with the people that it's their story. You know, ideally, we're looking at some model of co-creation. That's probably not totally accurate. I'm doing a lot of it, but if people have heartburn after they hear something, that matters to me. I at least want to be true. Again, the process matters. How people feel during the process and after it matter, because I'm trying to build connection, and I'm trying to elevate work that needs to be done. So I want to talk a little bit about storyteller well-being. This is something that came to me in my storyteller work. This is something I have a lot of feelings and thoughts about, and I could do a whole presentation on just this. There's a little URL in the bottom of the screen there. I have a document that I've created on storyteller well-being, of course, drawing from lots of work from other people as well. But there are folks that have a lot to lose potentially from their story being heard. I worked with a woman who was a grandmother raising her daughter's children, and she had social services that were really bugging her and really looking for a reason to take these kids. And she wanted to talk about what it meant to become a mother again under these tragic circumstances to these kids that had a lot of needs, and then have a system that was trying to take the kids away. And we had to really think about what's a safe way for her to tell this story. And there are ways of thinking about it, but we have to deal with it. And there's also trauma, right? And so I always work with people like, if something is feeling really uncomfortable in your body, it's okay to stop. It's okay to set a boundary with me. We don't want to like put you in a space that feels uncomfortable. This is about you and your story and what you want to share. So there's a lot to think about with storyteller safety. So the implications for the field, you know, we talk about wanting to do health equity, racial equity work. We need to kind of be reflexive in the way that we see ourselves in the world, in the way that we're dealing with community members, in deep listening, in providing space. Even when our grants don't give us space, we have to find ways of allowing people to communicate with us the way they need to, and stopping long enough to be attentive to their needs. When we talk about diversifying the workforce, same thing. You know, a lot of things are under the auspices of professionalism are really white supremacy. And if we want to diversify the workforce, we need to approach things with a level of sensitivity and vulnerability, and keep it real. And also mutual support and morale. I think the field has gone through some really traumatic time in the last few years. And I think that continues. And I don't know that people feel heard or addressed in the way that maybe other fields have been through the pandemic. So I think that that's another implication. And my final slide, storytelling isn't therapy. And I sometimes get kind of like that, but I'm not a therapist, so I don't want to even start this. And I'm like, it's okay to be clear that you're not a mental health professional. We all have a role in breaking isolation for ourselves, for one another. We shouldn't shy away from that. This image is some community work that I did based on community conversations, all these sources of stress that people were having and how intertwined they were. So again, just a way of representing and putting a point on human experience that helps people feel really heard and really starting to unpack that work. I'm happy to hand it back to Shannon and take questions when appropriate. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Isabelle. That was a fantastic presentation. I really appreciate your willingness to share your work with us. We have time for maybe one quick question, and then if you have other questions for Isabelle, please feel free to put them in the chat and perhaps Isabelle can respond to you there. So if someone has a question and you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question of Isabelle. Okay, great. All right, well, we're going to move on. Isabelle, if you don't mind stopping sharing your screen, we will hand it off to Russell Miller. Russell, I've gone ahead and made you a co-host, so you are welcome to share your screen and start your presentation as well. And I will put Russell's bio in the chat as well for you to learn a little bit about Russell's background. Whenever you're ready, Russell, take it away.
Okay. Thank you very much, Shannon. Can everyone hear me? Great, thank you very much. Okay, let me just make this presenter mode. Okay, but everyone can see that. Great. Okay, so I think a little bit different pace over here. I'll get into this, but the title of the talk is about new data sources and digital strategies to address inequities in migrant health in the community, I would say. And as you can see from my my title there, so I'm a visiting scientist at the Department of Community Health and University of Tokyo, and so I'm actually in Japan right now, but I am American. So I think this is an interesting perspective, talking about, you know, being an American outside of the US, looking back and how much we celebrate immigrant culture within the US, and then you start to look elsewhere around the world and think about, you know, just all the things maybe people take for granted in the US about how inclusive, you know, we try to be in policy making, and how the lessons learned can translate abroad. And so I'll go a little bit into the overall global trends with immigration. But first, I just want to acknowledge my maybe more my collaborators on this project. They're also all based in Japan, one in Singapore. And this work was supported by a grant from the Toyota Foundation. And I'm an employee of a research organization that's my full-time employment separate from this project. And so actually I wanted to say all of these members, this project is, I'll show you in a second, but online platform building. Everyone else has a full-time job. This is our passion project. And so we're putting together, we just applied for a nonprofit status yesterday. So it's very exciting. So you don't have to raise your hand quite yet, but just think in your mind. If you've ever, or you do consider yourself a migrant right now, or if you've ever considered yourself a migrant, maybe you were a student moving around, within the US as well counts, as a migrant. Have you ever searched for sexual or reproductive health care while away from your usual country of residence, let's say that. So I put here sexual reproductive health care as just an example of something that's very sensitive kind of healthcare that, it's hard to find that kind of healthcare just anywhere. So, and then have you ever navigated in a language other than your native language to search for such kind of healthcare? You must think about, if you haven't, just put yourself in someone else's shoes, how difficult that could be. So right now, I'm in Japan, but we can think about all of Asia. This is an issue. You can see here's a little bit of background, but on the left, upper left, is a graph of Japan's population. So as an example, right? So right now, this is like a roller coaster. We're just past the peak of this roller coaster, and this is the population now declining. And this is all over Asia, Europe. Italy is doing the same thing. So many countries, the populations are declining. And so what is happening now is countries that were kind of homogeneous, resistant to immigration, are now starting to scramble to boost immigration. And so the key is how to make the country attractive to immigrants and supportive for immigrants. And so that's what this project is kind of trying to help catch up Japan to do. And then we're thinking about rolling it out in other countries as well, hopefully, as we get more funding. So as an example, again, you can just take HIV/AIDS as an example in Japan. So the immigrant population in Japan is 3%, and the number of new diagnoses in 2021 was 15%. And so you can just do like a little back of the envelope calculation and see that the incidence is very high compared to the domestic Japanese population, right? So, there's many, you can ask many questions. Why is that? There's lots of likely factors, but, up to 40% of migrants report trouble finding a medical facility, according to, Immigration Services Bureau. There's, for HIV/AIDS, low knowledge or low Japanese level leads to being less likely to seek care. There's higher loss to follow-up for migrants versus Japanese. So how can this all led us, all my collaborators and I, kind of separately to think about how can we lower barriers to equitable healthcare for vulnerable migrants? And then we all kind of found each other and came together and put this together. So some of our collaborators are tech people actually working in the tech sector. And so that's, really helped us to put this together. So I'll show you that unlike what I'm going to show you now, our site is much more interactive. So what exists right now, for example, a multilingual, like for HIV testing in, you want to find information not in Japanese, you would need to go to a site like this. This site is run by an academic group that's funded by the Ministry of Health. So it's not even really funded by the government itself. It's more like an ad hoc thing. There's several different languages, but it's a list of static static links. And so there's no multilingual, there's no feedback loop to this, just kind of a static page. And so we can look, there's lots of different links, but you click, it's a broken link. Well, who do I contact about that broken link? I'm not sure. You can see where, people, foreign people are hitting roadblocks. And then also the issue is they're hitting roadblocks independently, and probably many people are hitting the same roadblock over and over. And so how do we just share our knowledge, right? We have this group of people who are probably searching for healthcare, not all the time, of course, but over the years, everyone's searched at least once. And so if we can make that easier for everyone, kind of put together our collective experience, which is called crowdsourcing if we do it online. So that's my answer to this question. How do we make this kind of information more dynamic, interactive, and authentic? So these are for the digital natives now. These are really key, and so migrants tend to be young, so 18 to 35, and so these are really important. So just a little bit background. I'm sorry, what time is it? Keep it quick. We just did, this project was first put together for COVID-19 vaccines, actually, during the height of the vaccine, early vaccine rollout in Japan, which was very slow compared to the US. And so anyway, our co-founder put together this quick and dirty database that had people could access clinics that had waiting lists for vaccines. And anyway, on the top day of traffic, there were 70,000 page hits. So that was a lot. And so we knew there was a need for this kind of multilingual healthcare information. There were, got a lot of media attention, but there were some problems. It was put together very quickly. There was not a lot of thought about user design. It was a static database. It was difficult for other, non-technical people to edit the languages. And so sustainability issues, difficult for non-technical staff. And then also we wanted to make something that goes beyond COVID, right? So we started ideating, what you do in tech field. And so basically kind of settled on more of a Yelp-like site. At first we thought Yelp-like site, but something where people can, input in one language and then everyone can see the same information in their own language. And so all the information is user submitted, but verified by moderators, which would be volunteers gathered through us. So an example here, there would be a pregnant person putting in information in English, and then other people can see that information about a health facility. Maybe, oh, this health facility in Kawasaki, Japan is really good. People can see that information. And so we had a lot of iterative designs. We have someone who's a user design, for their day job, and they're volunteering on this project as, kind of a giving back, their way of giving back. So we went through several iterations. We kind of finalized on this iteration. Again, going back to the example of HIV/AIDS need in Japan. There is a whole network of low cost and free testing, and sometimes anonymous testing. They don't always overlap. So anyway, as you might have seen, in Google Maps or something, there's like this kind of marking of locations. And so people might ask, oh, what's the difference between this and Google Maps? And so the difference between this is this would be focused on healthcare. Our moderating would be only on healthcare. We would be able to verify the reviews that are in there. Also, something we talked about with our lawyers, pro bono lawyers, that it's really legally questionable to allow negative reviews. So just because you could get in trouble for defamation and things like that. So we are thinking about only positive reviews, but keeping it all highly monitored, so we can keep this, a really useful site, free of any trolls or anything like that. And so that we've gone through our first year of the funding. And so we have, you know, our MVP, our minimum viable product, ready to go. We applied for nonprofit status. We're still figuring out the rating system, kind of needing to attract more Japanese software developers, because we don't only want to make this, you know, an immigrant project or anything. We want to make it a community project. So we do have some Japanese members, and that's been really great to make headway in both communities. So yeah, and this is kind of our cycle. So we're in the second year. We're working on dissemination and partnership. I think a lot of local governments will be interested in this. And then it all kind of culminates in a hopefully randomized controlled trial where we would be testing the well-being. So if we, you know, introduce this site to people, not necessarily that they use it, but just if they have it versus people who have maybe only a paper information, do they have improvement in their well-being over, you know, kind of probably a short period of time. But just to show the effectiveness of this platform in a scientific way is something we'd really like to do. So we do have just a quick Google form if you're interested in putting any feedback or seeing the landing page, where we also collect email if you want to get updates about the site. So that's my quick presentation. But again, thinking about immigrant, or I guess foreign people inclusion. This is an Asian perspective, but I know it applies a lot to the US as well. So thank you for your attention. And I'm happy to take questions if we have a little time for questions. Or
Yes, there is time for a couple of questions for Russell, if anyone has any.
not, that's no
Thank
problem.
you.
Oh,
Hi. Yeah, hi. Great presentation. Interesting thing about a migrant population from outside of the United States perspective. So thanks for sharing. I did. It was interesting. When the lawyers get involved, the conversation you had brought up about the positive reviews. So I guess, is there a way, while you can't have negative reviews, to gauge whether it is a quote unquote safe space, or what? Like, how can somebody calibrate that? Not noting that you can't have negative reviews, is it based off of number of positives, or just trying to think how that would work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. And we're thinking through it too. Originally, thinking about just the 5-star rating comes to mind first, right? You think about that. But yeah, we don't want, because we want Japanese healthcare providers themselves to be using this site. We really don't want to scare away, any institutions from having their information on our site, which is just information is publicly available, like address and phone number and things. So the main endorsement that would be a positive review is that the facility is on our website. So that would be an endorsement, right? The sites, the places that do not have multilingual healthcare, are not culturally sensitive or not culturally competent, are not going to be on our site. So we're not going to go out and find every hospital that's out there. We're going to allow the users to tell us which are the good ones, and then we're posting those. And so I think we're still up in the air about comments. Of course, I think if we limit it to positive comments, right? Not as some of you might know, on different Facebook groups or things, sometimes it can devolve into like what's bad and not talk about what's good. And so we can hopefully we can make a situation where just only the good stuff is talked about, and then we can just assume everything else we shouldn't engage with it because it's not as good as what's on the site. So yeah, sorry for the long answer, but something like that.
But you would use that information to take venues off your site, right?
That's a good question.
If you saw a lot of, in other words, in some ways, for what you want to do, you want to make sure that you collect information from people who did not get what they expected from the site, either because of the way it was written up or because they weren't treated respectfully.
Yeah.
So you've
that's
got to
true.
build that in somehow, whether you
Mm.
prevent a negative conversation from taking place,
Mhm.
or you've got to build in, and I can assure you that there will be people trying to get on your site that are not sensitive at all. Trust me on that one.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because you're right, I think maybe hopefully less than half the journey, but half, there are people who, you know, have had that experience of bad encounters. And then, you know, if the site is not somehow recording that, then, you know, we're losing a big piece of the experience that this site helps, you know, navigate people into the right avenues. And so if we know to avoid that site, that institution, that's a good question. Yeah. That's food for thought about how we can do that in a way that's, again, not pitting institutions against each other or
Oh,
making
absolutely.
well, yeah.
And you
That's
might also want to include something that will provide training, maybe at a cost or not at a cost, for how an organization can become more suitable. There may be organizations or healthcare systems that are willing to learn how to deal with. I had a student from, I think, Mali, who was married to a woman from Japan. He went to medical school in Japan, and he and his family were treated extremely badly. Not his wife, because she looked like people that live in Japan because she was Japanese, but the kids were all biracial. He is a dark African man, and a brilliant physician, but and got great training, but he could never practice there because he was not treated as a human being, never mind a talented physician. So I'm just saying there are a lot of discriminatory practices in Japan based on colorism, if not racism. So so this would even help people who are untouchable from India, because they happen to have come over as slaves from Africa. When the slave ships went out from West and East Africa, they didn't just go east. They didn't just go to the United States and Brazil. They also went to Asia. And that's part of why some Asian people are darker than some African Americans, because in addition to racism, there's colorism, even in our own groups. So if you can offer some help to the health providers in Japan, if they want to train their staffs to become more competent as human beings, that's a service you might consider offering.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Russell, for that presentation. It was fantastic. We did have a question in the comments and chat about whether or not you could post the site, because some people are watching or listening to the meeting on their phones, so they can't see the slides themselves. So
sure. Okay. I can, yeah, I'll put it in the chat for sure. Yes, thank you for reminding.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for that. Our next speaker is Rebecca Mintle, and Rebecca, I have made you a co-host. So when you are ready to share your screen, you can take it away with your presentation. And I will put Rebecca's bio in the chat. Rebecca, if you're speaking, you might be muted. I don't think we can hear you.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Okay, I'll start over again. To warn you, I have a cold right now, so I don't sound so great. And if I mute suddenly, it's because I need to sneeze. I'll try not to sneeze on the microphone, so I apologize for that. But today I wanted to talk to you about Project Ella, which is Early Language and Literacy for All. And I am in Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm a speech language pathologist by clinical training. And I work at Cleveland Hearing and Speech Center, which is the oldest nonprofit hearing and speech center in the country. We just turned 100 years old a couple years ago. So really, before I kind of jump into what Project Ella is, I wanted to touch on speech language pathology and language development. Speech language pathology is a very, very broad field. You can see on the left, we kind of have our big 9 that we cover. So, and there's so many subsets and like everything that's going on with speech. But one of the things we work on, not surprisingly because of our name, is language and language development. So that is what Project Ella is focused on. And it's focused on children from birth to age 5, because that is an extremely critical period for language development. So this is when children are really learning to express their wants, needs, and thoughts, understand others' wants, needs, and thoughts. And it's beyond just talking. It's, you know, any way a child's communicating, any way they're understanding your communication, whether that be through gestures, facial expressions, so all of that. And these language skills serve as building blocks for literacy skills going forward. So what happens in those first 5 years as far as language development is really critical for that child's future success. So what we are seeing is that there's differences in language skills that are seen between children from higher mid socioeconomic backgrounds versus low SES backgrounds. So by the time children reach preschool, the differences in their language ability can already be seen. So we're already seeing a gap when they get to, 3-4 years old. They've done brain imaging studies now, and we're looking at differences as kind of between low SES versus high SES and how language is processed in the brain. And this has been seen very, very early, even in infancy. And children from these backgrounds, from lower SES backgrounds, it's been found that often they're not identified for language intervention until they enter kindergarten. So we're looking at, oh, why did that jump like that? So it's often they're not getting the intervention that they need. So what we're looking at is kind of like, well, what's going on here? Like, why is socioeconomic status affecting language development? And Pace and colleagues put together this model that has kind of 3 mediators between it. So we've got the child characteristics. So that's not that modifiable. That's kind of how the child is, how the child learns. There's those proximal interactions, which is the interactions between the caregiver and the child. And then there's the richness of the proximal and distal environments. So that's if you're talking about, are there books in the home or out in the community? Is there a library in the community? Is it safe to go to the library? Can you walk there? So really those last 2 are modifiable, which is really, really great. And what Project Ella focuses on is those proximal interactions. So between and I'm not sure my slides just have a mind of their own. And between the child and their caregiver. So that's what Project Ella is focused on. And really, so drilling down into that and thinking about why we're seeing the differences in language skills between those higher SES and lower SES is, looking at the family stress model, which focuses on income. So looking at, lower income causing more stress, causing more depression, causing more relationship conflict, all that's going to affect parenting behaviors and, how the parent's able to interact with their child and therefore affect the children's outcomes. And really with this, I feel like you can plug in pretty much any of the social determinants of health. And it's just families are kind of stuck in this system that's stacked against them in so many different ways that there's oftentimes so much going on that maybe there's not a ton of books in the home, or there's not the parents don't have a lot to give as far as how much they interact with their child. So it can just, this, is one of the reasons we see kind of the differences maybe in language ability between higher and lower SES. And we really believe at Cleveland Hagen Speech Center that language skills are absolutely tied into the cycle of poverty. So for example, like a child born into poverty is, at risk for not starting out in the best language environment. And this means they might enter school not completely ready to learn to read. And this is important because the children's language skills as they enter kindergarten at age 5 are a top predictor of third grade reading and writing proficiency. And third grade reading and writing proficiency is a leading predictor of high school graduation. So even in those early years, how they perform as far as language and literacy can be a predictor of if a child's going to graduate from high school. And of course, if they don't graduate from high school or they don't go on to post-secondary education, that can lead to, not high vocational achievement, and you still kind of get stuck in the cycle of poverty and keep going around and around. So we by no means think that targeting language skills is going to solve the cycle of poverty or eradicate poverty, but we believe that it's a key part of what can keep families trapped in the cycle of poverty. So we believe we're part of the puzzle to help families, get to a point in life that they deserve. So with that background, Project Ella is, like I said, early language and literacy for all. So this is a public health approach to language building for children aged birth to 5. This is very new for us. My organization has not done a public health approach before. And usually, and this is the model of speech language pathologists, we wait for the children to show up at our clinic. So we wait, they come, we evaluate them, we give them treatment. But really, language skills are far too important for us not to go out into the community, try to do preventative skill building, try to catch those kids before they get to kindergarten to see if they need any kind of speech and language intervention, to raise awareness of how important language development is. And we have like this message that we share that's catch and pass, which I'll talk about in a minute, about how important this really simple action of going back and forth with the child is and how powerful that is for language development. So our goals are really having a presence in the community that we haven't had before. And as we've gone out and built these partnerships, I have to say that Cleveland really has a great landscape of nonprofits who are working to help families. We've met a lot of new organizations and seen how we could collaborate with them to reach these families with the youngest children. And just raising awareness through presentations for both professionals and parents about language development. We have free evaluation and treatment services at our centers so that no financial barriers exist. If the children do need treatment, there's no feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't afford it. There's no cost for the treatment, and we're working towards, this is a new project for us, working towards using a community health worker model, and we're actually in the hiring process right now to bring a community health worker on because it really, we can't connect with the community otherwise. So we're looking eventually to have multiple community health workers, but we're right at the beginning of this, but from the very beginning, that has been our goal. Yeah. We've so far, because we're in the first year, we've done things like attend health fairs. We've gone out into the community to do preschool and daycare screenings. Usually our center charges for those, but with Project Ella funding from our funders, we've been able to go out and do those free of charge because the cost for an independent daycare is really prohibitive. When you've got something like Head Start that has some funding, we are able to go there, but this has allowed us to reach out to a lot more daycares in the community when they don't, when there's no cost to them for screening. And we've engaged in play groups and parent training, so play groups that are already happening in the community. And we hope to eventually, once we get a community health worker up to speed, to run our own play groups. We've done presentations for community health workers. Namely those from, we have like Nurse Family Partnership and Moms First, and both of those use a community health worker home visiting model for pregnant mothers and new mothers. So these are really great community health workers to help spread, the message of how important language development is. And then also some child and parent engagement workshops. So we're working on one that is literacy in the home. So every week it's an idea of like, here's how we can build language in the kitchen. Here's how we can build language during bath time. So things like that. And all of this we offer free of charge through grant funding. And so what we're trying is the clear message that we're trying to get across is this idea of catch and pass. And I am curious if anybody has any feedback about this, because really recent research, this is really, really exciting, has shown that the conversational turns, the back and forth, this is with a baby, this is cooing back and forth, this is looking at the same thing and commenting on it, this is any age, is really, really key to a child's language development. And this is just a really simple message that if you just go back and forth a little bit more, this could help your child with their language really leaps and bounds. It's really amazing what it can do. So we really, when we talk to parents, when we talk to other community health workers, if they take nothing else away, just this catch and pass message. Harvard Center on the Developing Child has, they call it serve and return, which is what we started with, but serve and return just felt like, I don't know, it just felt very Tennessee. It felt, I don't know, so we went with catch and pass. So we kind of saw it as a little bit friendlier than serve and return, but this is an idea that's out there in other organizations that we found this back and forth communication is so important and can make a difference for the child's entire trajectory all the way to adulthood, is getting those strong language skills between birth and age 5. So just real quick, I'll show you our Project Ella team for now is our executive director, myself, I direct the speech language pathology department, Deja, who's our Project Ella manager and who's doing the community health worker type of activities right now, and she'll manage the community health worker once they come on. And then we have Michael Rollins, who is our data scientist, because we really want this approach of going out into the community with speech language services to be something that could be funded by the state and eventually by the government. We feel like it's something that's important enough that this kind of early intervention really should gain traction, should gain funding. So we're trying to be very careful about tracking what we do. And Michael's been really essential in that, to making sure that we track the right things. So that is what I have. I'm just looking at the chat. Okay, there's me. I just want to see if there's anything about this. Oh, let me read about this one. Yes, so I would absolutely agree that when people are hungry, when they can't find work, when they have too many kids, that's where we kind of run into the issue of maybe not like the optimal language environment, but that's why we always want to stress, because it does sound like we're coming in here and being like, oh my gosh, hey, just focus on this language and you'll be good. But we always really, really want to stress that we are like a small part of everything that has to happen. We are just a part. So we don't believe, because I think when we first started messaging this, we left a lot out that also has to happen. So this is why we want to partner with the other organizations in the community. We want to be part of this, but we understand that that basic needs have to be met first. And that's why we also try with this really, really kind of simple message of like, just try to go back and forth a little bit more. And I think we're a small portion of that. And the neurodiverse children, that's a very interesting question, because they might not communicate in the same way, and they might not go back and forth in the same way. So as far as like a large blanket message, we don't yet have kind of an approach for neurodiverse kids. This is kind of just the beginning of like a blanket back and forth, but I totally hear you on the neurodiversity, and that those children communicate differently oftentimes, and the back and forth might not come as natural. So that is something that's kind of on our minds and thinking about. And then child care services. Yes, so I'm reading the one about child care services and staff. So one way we're trying to address this is, say, with like early Head Start, which sees the children that are like birth to 2, is doing training with those staff on even the simple message of going back and forth with the children, so that those can be the best environments for the kids too, because Head Start does really great work, and we're partners with a few of the Head Starts in the area. But yeah, we feel like it's really important to just kind of share these messages with the childcare providers so that they can be the most, effective at language building. But yes, thank you for all of that. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Any other questions for Rebecca? It's a wonderful presentation. We appreciate you being with us today to share your work. If you have any other questions or comments for Rebecca, please feel free to pop them into the chat. Rebecca can respond to you there. Our next speaker is Haper-Grace Neidermeyer. Haper-Grace is traveling and has experienced some delays and some challenges, but she has planned ahead, and so she has shared with us a recorded version of her presentation. She is on the call, and so will be available to answer questions after her presentation, but I'm going to share my screen and play her recorded presentation for us because her Wi-Fi internet connection is a little unstable at the moment. So we will watch her presentation this way, and then she can answer any questions that we might have.
Just a reminder, you might need to also share your audio.
Oh, how do I do that?
If you click on the share button, there should be a share audio option, I believe.
Let's see, maybe I need to go back before I do this. Screen and sharing option.
And I think sometimes it says share more, and then it takes you to another screen, like at the top of your share screen.
Okay. Yep, there it is. Wonderful. Computer audio. And then there's that. Okay, so we'll see if this works. Okay, can everybody see the video with Harper?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
I don't
I'm
know
not
about
hearing.
anybody else. Yeah, I can't hear anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. I thought I did that the right way, but apparently I did not.
Perhaps it's like a share sound. Did you click on the share sound?
Yeah, I thought that I did, but perhaps I did not. Share audio from your computer.
Yeah, share sound, and then also the next button next to it, optimize for video clip.
Yeah, both of those are checked. So,
okay. And then maybe the volume button on the player. I couldn't tell if it was all the way up or not.
okay, let's see. Let's try that again and see if that works. Okay, and then let me go back and start this over. Can you guys hear that now?
No, not yet.
Okay, this may not work the way that I thought, so I might have to share the file in the chat.
Did she send an MP4 or are you playing it from, like, it looks like you're playing it from the player? Or did she send you an MP4?
She
Or
sent
like
me
a
an
file?
M.
Oh,
She
okay.
sent,
So if
yes.
she did it that way, then go to, instead of the basic, you want to click on the second tab at the top that says advanced. And then click video, and then that will open up your file structure. And then you can go to your file. So go to advanced. Okay.
Okay, well, it looks like Harper has started sharing her screen. Harper, are you able to share and present?
Go to advanced.
Yes, so if you are trying to play like a MOV or MP4 file, go instead of basic when you go to share, click the second tab at the very top. So you can exit out of this. And then when you go to the green share, when your white box opens up, instead of basic at the top, go to the second tab that says advanced. Let me know if you see that first.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then you should see a third box that says video. And when you click on video, it will open up immediately your file structure on your computer. And you'll just, when it opens up your file structure, you just need to click on the file, like double click on it as if to open it. And now you should be able to click on the.
Good afternoon.
Ah.
My name is Haper-Grace Neidermeyer, and I am a licensed master's level social worker who currently serves as the Civic Engagement Strategy Manager with the Office of Strategic Initiatives at the Tennessee Department of Health. And today I'm going to be talking to you about our new product, the Tennessee Vitality Toolkit, Vital Conditions for Community Resilience and Well-Being. But before I talk to you about the Tennessee Vitality Toolkit, I should probably give you a little bit of information on county health councils. So what are county health councils? If we didn't have county health councils, we would have to invent them because they are the perfect vessel for carrying the work of public health forward. We all know that the health department cannot improve or sustain the health of a population on its own. Our communities are made up of a myriad of systems that all play a part in impacting the health and well-being of those communities. Health councils are a way of organizing those systems to better work together. In Tennessee, health councils have been active in almost all 95 counties since the 1990s. They are a diverse group of local collaborators at the county level. They're community-led. They advance health priorities identified by the community. They use partnerships from a wide range of sectors, which is one of their defining and most powerful characteristics. Health councils are in the ideal position to address health disparities at the local level because they advance the community expectations that certain issues be addressed. By creating a common agenda through the community health assessment process, and through the relationships built and leveraged by going through the process of developing and implementing a community health improvement plan, our hope is to see health councils begin to influence the upstream factors such as policies, systems, and environmental changes that have a collective impact on the social drivers and root causes of health disparities. The Vitality Toolkit was developed as the next version of the Tennessee Vital Signs, a former dashboard of data meant to measure the pulse of Tennessee's population health. Evaluation of the effectiveness and usability of the vital signs led to a revamp of the site with the goal of making the resource more useful for communities and more focused on the upstream social drivers of health. While developing the toolkit, we looked at lots of different evidence-based resources. Literature reviews were conducted for each priority area, as well as partner interviews to formulate real-life case studies. This work was inspired by national best practices and recommendations from several key frameworks, such as the ones you see on the screen. To invite feedback on the new Vitality Toolkit framework and understand how these issues are already being addressed in Tennessee, we held over 60 hours of interviews with subject matter experts. We also held 4 community advisory focus groups made up of County Health Council members and public health staff from counties across the state to talk about priority areas chosen in the 2022 County Health Assessment process. So without further ado, here is the Tennessee Vitality Toolkit, Vital Conditions for Community Resilience and Well-Being. For many years in Tennessee, county health councils have addressed the social drivers of health by using the County Health Assessment process, the CHPPD, which gathers data about community health, and the Community Health Improvement Plan, the CHIP, which turns that data into action. The Tennessee Vitality Toolkit is a framework to help Tennessee County Health Councils strengthen community well-being as they transition from their CHPPD process to collective impact and action. The intended audience for the Vitality Toolkit are county health councils as they work through their community health improvement process. However, the toolkit can be utilized by any community group or organization who would like to act on issues that impact health in their community. Community resilience is at the center of the framework because all the things that make a community able to prepare for, respond to, and recover from adversity are also vital to supporting the other priority areas highlighted in the toolkit. Also, all the priority areas contribute to community resilience. The toolkit lays out a menu of resources for 19 priority areas that a health council might choose to focus on in their CHIP. The purpose of the toolkit is to provide county health councils with a menu of evidence-based action steps to support work on their chosen needs and shared goals. These resources promote a strong foundation for community well-being by creating a shared understanding of difficult issues, providing ideas for action, spotlighting community examples, and focusing work on the social drivers of health. Through this toolkit, a health council will be able to get a sense of what partners, programs, or projects will have the biggest impact in addressing their locally identified priorities. The Vitality Toolkit is intended to be a living resource. That means that new priority areas will be introduced over time, and updates to partners, programs, and best practices will be updated to keep up with the ever-evolving opportunities to protect, promote, and improve health and prosperity in Tennessee. Eventually, there will be resources to address all 19 of these priority areas. The first launch of the toolkit, which is available now, includes the 6 priority areas highlighted on the screen: community resilience, nutrition security, person-centered care, civic engagement, positive childhood experiences, and substance misuse prevention. Each priority area will feature the following resources: an introduction to the priority area, which will help us create that shared understanding of the issue, and it will talk about why it is important for community well-being. We will talk about the disparities and what health disparities are present within that particular priority area. There will also be a fact sheet, which will be kind of a quick snapshot of that priority area that County Health Council members and health educators can use throughout their community. That will also have a QR code that will bring you back to the Vitality Toolkit. And the bread and butter of the toolkit, which is our community spotlights and the what can we do about it section. So every area will have ideas for activities and programs. So think maybe short-term mitigation things, as well as the long-term upstream factors, the policies and systems change information. We will also have a robust section on partners and resources to help county health councils further their work on that priority area. In every priority area, there are 5 different health disparities that will be highlighted. Those are racial and ethnic minorities, the LGBTQIA community, disabled individuals, rural Tennesseans, and the formerly incarcerated individuals. However, there are going to be some disparities that are present in some priority areas that are not present in others, such as children in foster care and those experiencing homelessness. So those will be represented where appropriate. We also have a vast amount of data visualizations within the disparities section that can be utilized by County Health Council members or the community in presentations as they would like. Here's an example of one of our fact sheets. My coworker Maddie did a fabulous job on these. Here's a screenshot of our what can we do about it section. So here we will have a definition of what activities and programs versus policies and systems change is, and we have different tabs for each so you don't have to kind of suss out which one is which. In our community spotlights, we will have a title for what that community spotlight is and a short description of what they did, as well as a contact information for that community collaboration, not only so that they can get their collaboration can get some traction, but so people can go back and talk to them about what their process was if they would like to replicate it. Here is a screenshot of our partners and resources section. So here you can see we have it broken down by statewide resources. So we're talking like state departments, and then other Tennessee resources, and then to learn more. So maybe national resources or other toolkits or frameworks that might be utilized in that priority area. So who will be using the Tennessee Vitality Toolkit? 54 of the 95 counties in Tennessee completed their county health assessment process in 2022. So as you can see here in blue, kind of bluish gray and red, these are the counties that have either completed or are in progress of completing their CHA. So these will be the counties that will most likely be utilizing the toolkit in the coming months. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for allowing me to present on the Vitality Toolkit, and I welcome any questions that you have. If you have any questions after this presentation, here is my contact information. Feel free to send me an email. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Haper-Grace. Any questions for Harper?
Hello, one question. Can you just refresh our memory? Is Tennessee a centralized or decentralized system for local health departments?
It is a centralized system. So we have central office, and then every county has their has a health department, but they all kind of report to central office.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. If you have any other questions for Haper-Grace, feel free to pop them into the chat and she can respond to you there. Our next speaker is Alexandra. Alexandra, I've made you a co-host, so feel free to share your screen and pull up your presentation. You can start whenever you are ready. And I will share Alexandra's bio in the chat so that you can learn a little bit more about her background.
Hi, everyone. I'll be presenting a team research project entitled A Culturally Responsive Community Health Intervention to Improve the Health of Filipino Americans in the Inland Empire of California, a pilot study. And we're based at the California University of Science and Medicine. So just a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Alexandra Gacuya. I'm a rising fourth-year medical student at my school, CUSM. And we're located in Colton of Southern California in the Inland Empire. And here is my email if needed. I have no financial disclosures. And my objective for everyone for my presentation is to understand the unique health needs and strengths of Filipino Americans. So Filipinos make up the second largest Asian subgroup and the fourth largest immigrant population in the nation. And interestingly enough, they are also the first documented Asian immigrants to arrive in the US, dating back to even the 1500s. But despite their long-standing history and rapid growth here in the United States, Filipino American health status and needs are poorly understood and poorly met nationwide. Hence, Filipinos are known to be an invisible minority due to underrepresentation and marginalization that often goes under society's radar. The lack of research and public health surveillance data that disaggregate Asian American ethnic groups make it difficult to assess Filipino health disparities as well as other Asian subgroup disparities. Because as an aggregate category, Asian Americans appear healthier than non-Hispanic whites on most indicators. However, in the few studies that have disaggregated the data, out of all Asian subgroups, Filipino Americans were found to have the most health disparities. So specifically, Filipinos experience a disproportionately high disease burden of cardiovascular disease and its complications. And just to emphasize the first bullet point, a recent study showed that Filipinos have the most years of potential life loss due to ischemic heart disease and stroke compared to other Asian subgroups. That's huge. Heart disease and stroke share many modifiable risk factors like hypertension, diabetes, smoking, obesity, diet, and physical inactivity. And studies have shown that Filipino Americans experience a high prevalence of these risk factors compared to other racial or ethnic groups. And so there is an urgent need to reduce these cardiovascular disparities in Filipino communities across the US. So we created the Bayanihan project. This serves as a community-focused health intervention that aims to address Filipino American health disparities in our community in the Inland Empire. This organization was created just recently in December of 2022. And again, we are based out of our medical school, CUSM. And our name is inspired by the Filipino value of Bayanihan, which loosely translates to community unity to care for one another. And here are some images of our previous events with our volunteers and our participants. So what makes the Bayanihan project special? I believe our biggest strengths is that we provide culturally tailored services and we are accessible to the community. We planned our program based on popular Filipino sociocultural values as listed here. And these values are described multiple times throughout academia and through our own personal experiences. We also provide education on a list of core topics related to cardiovascular health, and we teach participants how to check their blood pressure and blood sugar at home and what the values mean. We're also accessible to the community in a way that we're able to reach out to people who wouldn't otherwise look for our services by coordinating our events out in community spaces like at cultural shows or places where a lot of Filipinos gather, like at churches. So again, we are a medical student organization led by medical students. So our team is based on those who plan the events and those who support the events. Our leadership team comprises of a single committee lead for research, community engagements, program development, and internal affairs. And they actively coordinate tasks with a core planning committee to plan events. And our community events that are planned are then supported by volunteer physicians, interpreters, students, and community organizations and partnerships. And for this presentation in particular, we will now focus on the research aspect of our project. So our study aims include assessing the effectiveness of our health intervention and also identifying barriers to health. And our target population in this study are Filipino Americans in the Inland Empire who are above the age of 18. And we focused on Filipino Americans in the Inland Empire because this is where our medical school, CUSM, is based. And the Inland Empire, or IE for short, is made up of both Riverside and San Bernardino County, which makes up the largest counties in the US. And in this region in particular, Filipinos are the largest Asian immigrant population. So to assess our research questions, we provide participants with a paper or electronic survey that addresses our study aims. We then use this real-time data we collect to continuously learn about the Filipino IE community. And this data continues to guide improvements to our current program. So now let's dive into our preliminary results. So thus far, we have collected data from 4 different events at 3 sites that span across the IE in Chino Hills, Moreno Valley, and Riverside. We included people, again, who identified as Filipino, currently lived in the Inland Empire, and are above the age of 17. The right figure describes the patient population we have collected data on thus far, with a majority of our participants identifying as female, older adult, and first generation, and those who see their primary care doctor at least once a year. Now, in regard to our first study aim, assessing the effectiveness of our health intervention, we had an N of 20 who were able to complete the pre and post survey. So here, the majority of participants reported a positive or neutral outcomes after going through our services. Patients were more aware of risk factors for cardiovascular disease, the effects of diet and exercise on their health, healthier ingredient options, especially for common Filipino dishes, more awareness of stroke symptoms, and also how to use a glucose monitor. In regard to our second study aim, we hope to identify barriers to health experienced by this population. Here you can see the raw percentage of participants who listed these barriers to health and desired services, and I bolded the most prevalent answers. So some interesting points that I want to mention, a barrier to healthcare. A lot of our participants mentioned language. So this is interesting because Filipinos are seemingly well assimilated into American culture due to the high prevalence of English fluency, which is a product of US colonization back in the 1900s. And yet language is still listed as as a barrier to health. So this data suggests that any institution or organization that aims to promote Filipino health should also address the language barrier in their service, even if the patient seems to speak English fluently. Next, I also want to mention that cancer and mental health are the only self-reported health issues of Filipino Americans in the Inland Empire that they face, and that our project does not directly address. So this could be a future direction for the program and our research. And something I also want to note is that there's, according to this data, there's a lot of recurring themes of diet and nutrition. So this indicates that Filipinos are interested in guidance on healthy diet and nutrition. This suggests increased self-awareness of the poor dietary lifestyle and contemplation to improve that. And so we just need to provide the right resources and intervention to address this health concern of Filipinos. So as inherent with any study, we did come across study limitations, which include our location. So far, since starting our events in April, it's been difficult finding locations that many Filipinos frequent, and we are still in the process of developing partnerships, which again, building that rapport takes some time, especially when totally operating online. In terms of our surveys, we have issues with survey compliance to complete both the pre and post survey with, again, you notice that our N was about 20. Even though we did have about 50 people enrolled in the study. Another issue we came across is volunteers, which serves as another bottleneck for how many events we can do because they are the people supporting our events and the research project. And lastly, I also want to mention a cultural issue. So a common experience in trying to get people to come to our project and our booth is that I quote, "I don't want to know," in terms of their health, like blood pressure, glucose levels, or weight. And this is connected to a cultural attitude of something called bahala na, or hiyash, or shame. So this means that participants that we have, from the participants thus far, are people who are more likely to want to engage with their health. Thus, we are potentially excluding people who need health education the most. So hopefully we can find some way to include these people who are not interested in knowing more about their health or who leave their health up to God. So in conclusion, we are the first community health intervention for Filipino Americans in the Inland Empire, and we have served over 100 people in our region, Filipinos and not. We hope to advocate for Filipino American health, inspire organizations that also aim to uplift the health of similar marginalized populations, and improve the burden of health and inequities experienced by Filipinos through community engagement and data collection. In the future, we hope to expand our program and build more community partnerships to increase our reach and impact. And we hope to be sustained by our medical institution. So here are a list of my references, and that concludes my presentation. So if you have any questions, I am more than happy to address them in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. Any questions? Great. Fantastic. Well, if you think of any questions for Alexandra, do feel free to pop them into the chat for her to respond to. And we will move right along. I know we are running short on time here, so we will go ahead and move along to our next speaker, Cynthia Williams. And Cynthia, I am going to make you a co-host so that you can share your slides with us. Oh, I think Jeannie might have already done that. Great. Thank you, Jeannie, for that. And I will let you take it away. Cynthia, I will pop your bio into the chat for our attendees.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. And so my name is Dr. Cynthia Williams. I'm assistant professor at the University of Central Florida. And this project is called Telehealth Engagement in Hispanic Communities. And we'll kind of go through the basic outline here of our research and our development. And I will say this project is really kind of a phase 2 project. We'd actually done a similar project looking at total populations. And one of the things that came out was people in the Hispanic community during COVID really having extremely low telehealth engagement, even more so than non-Hispanic Blacks, and of course whites, which we looked at as well. So this was a retrospective study we did during kind of that COVID era, that March to April 2021. This was a retrospective study. And we used Analytic People Core, which is a consumer database. It gave us information about health behaviors, education, some of the social determinants of health, and also Office Alley, which is in an EMR database. So we were able to combine that. We used our software and logistic regression to specifically look at the Hispanic population. And what we found was really some of it surprising, some of it not so surprising. In terms of people that really engaged with telehealth, we found those that were less likely were males over the age of 65. Of course, people, younger folks that had a high school education or less. And interestingly enough, we were expecting bilingual across ages to demonstrate low telehealth engagement, but we actually only found it for those that are only over the age of 65, and I'll explain that a little bit later. And then, of course, health behaviors, smoking, alcohol use at any age. So kind of that health promotion, health engaging behaviors was non-promoting in terms of telehealth engagement. If we look specifically at the socioeconomic status, things that we would expect to see for the general population, those that were higher income, had private insurance, perhaps full-time employment, that had positive health behaviors, right? Not smoking, not drinking, they exercise. They were already engaged in an online health seeking behavior, such as using WebMD, and they were already engaged with a primary care physician. So as you look at these promoters of telehealth engagement, I think one of the things that kind of glares at you is like, oh, these are the people that probably already have access to the healthcare system, right? And so not so different from the general population. And so when we look at how do we talk a lot about how do we engage people in digital health. I mean, what is so glaring is, well, first of all, we have to engage them in the healthcare system, right? And most of that is through our primary care system. We saw a community of people that were not engaged in telehealth, and we look at why. You know, things that we are promoting in CHPPD, right? Increased access to health insurance, having a primary care physician. The research shows us that most people that engage with telehealth do so through their primary care physician. And then, of course, looking at cultural sensitivity, such as language. And when we talk about language, interestingly enough, like I'd mentioned before, I was really looking at or thought that, language barriers would be a significant barrier among all ages. And when I have looked at telehealth programs that are purely bilingual or in Spanish or part more culturally sensitive, the literature doesn't overwhelmingly say that people are engaged. And so when I began to really look at this concept of bilingual, I found that many authors saw that bilingual is really a subjective term. You determine whether you're bilingual or not necessarily employing some kind of, we use health literacy, functional health literacy test, and digital health literacy, but none that really have been employed that measures bilingual. And there are times when perhaps people see themselves as being bilingual, right? Being proficient in both languages, but perhaps maybe proficient verbally, but maybe not in writing. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting perspective about the concept of language being a barrier. And not to say that it's not, it just wasn't overwhelmingly positive. Which again was a little bit surprising to me. But again, that concept of being bilingual and how do we really test for that objectively, I just thought was an area that could be further developed and really more explored. And as we've seen earlier presentations about engaging community health workers for so many reasons, not just language, but cultural sensitivity and engagement, having that lived experience. I will say as a result of these series of studies, I'm also developing a community health worker program where community health workers are not just engaged as advocates and a community resource for the patient, but they're engaged with the provider as well to inform the provider about treatment strategies. How can the patient and the provider better engage? And sometimes that's not, it's more than just providing resources for the patient, but we have to educate providers as well, particularly if culturally, perhaps they don't align. And this has, and when we can increase telehealth outcomes, not only does it show that we are providing access in terms of literacy and insurance, but we're also supporting what it means to be digitally engaged and ensuring health equity and resources, insurance, and education. And so when we look at our public health infrastructure, what does that mean in terms of this population and really for other populations that experience disparity and engagement? The technology infrastructure, using, again, our insurance, our providers, making really our PCP kind of access more robust. And then, of course, looking at digital inequities, not only in terms of the actual internet and technology, but the education to be bolstered so that they can engage. And then what does that mean for positive changes in behavior? And so really not looking at this from a digital perspective, but looking at it from a complete support and overhaul of our public health infrastructure for communities that are not engaged, i.e. not engaged with their healthcare system. And from a policy perspective, some of these things that we've already seen transpire since actually earlier this year. discussions about how do we increase access to healthcare, specifically PCP and insurance, which is not a new conversation, but unfortunately is one that we continue to battle. And then more attention has been paid to the value of community health workers. But again, I would suggest as an integral member of the clinical team, they are certainly a great resource from a community resource perspective. Just talking to people in my county and in my states about how can community health workers really be collaborative in terms of interdisciplinary care when it comes to clinical care, so that they can better support patients in ways that many times providers don't have the resources or quite honestly the time to do that. And then, of course, what we've seen most recently is the FCC broadband subsidy. We've seen this. I personally have seen this in South Florida, where this subsidy has really been impactful in terms of providing not only internet but devices to people in the Hispanic community to provide access to that. So it's my relationships and research that's been ongoing in South Florida in terms of this FCC broadband subsidy has really been promising. So just kind of applaud the initial steps that we're taking, but certainly there is room to be more impactful in this area. And so just kind of the limitations, just when we think about an administrative database, collecting the database, sometimes there were missings. And I'll tell you, we need to get better, of course, in terms of consistency and defining not only telehealth, but how do we engage. Other areas of research has shown us that people of color do not engage, of course, the same degree, nor do they engage in the same modalities in terms of audio and video. So there's definitely room for improvement there. And so, but it's really been insightful and really an honor to be to collaborate on this project, not only from a health equity perspective, but telehealth has been very close to my heart, very as a clinical professional and now as a researcher. So looking to ways to highlight how we can show more equity in telehealth, and that means more equity in the healthcare system as well. So thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, you can put them in the chat or send me an email.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cynthia. That was a great presentation. As you heard Cynthia say, if you have questions for her, please do put them in the chat. We are running really tight on time, and I do want to respect people's time today. So we will go ahead and move on to our next speaker, Megan. Jeannie, if you've made her a co-host already, Megan, you can go ahead and take control and share your screen to show your presentation, and I will put your bio in the chat for our attendees to see your background, and go ahead and take it away whenever you are ready.
I said hello, on mute, of course, because that's how that goes. Well, my name is Megan Bhatti. If you'll give me just a second, I'm trying to pull up this little slide deck as that goes for all of us. I will try to be brief, as I know I am possibly standing between you, lunch, and or a nap. See, what do y'all see? No, that's not what I want to share. Okay, do y'all see the slide deck?
Yes.
I see Missouri Foundation for Health.
Great. Okay.
Take as much time as you're supposed to, Megan. We'll work around it.
Sounds good. Well, today I wanted to chat a bit about an innovative way for funders, and so funders to integrate community voice into their advocacy strategy through we're doing that through an initiative called the Exemplary Advocate Cohort.
Good idea.
Sorry, are we good?
Go ahead, Megan. Sorry, there were other attendees not on mute.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about the Exemplary Advocate, or about the foundation. We're one of the largest health conversion foundations in Missouri, created in the year 2000. About our cohort, the cohort itself launched in 2019, and it's one of our many strategies within the theory of change for our advocacy department that leads to the vision of eliminating underlying causes of health inequities, transforming systems, and enabling individuals and communities to thrive. So the strategy essentially was formed by the belief that a strong field of advocates, rather than merely a strong individual advocacy organization operating in isolation, would lead to greater changes in the political atmosphere and the overall atmosphere and advocacy. I will apologize in advance because I am terrible, as I'm sure a lot of y'all are, about acronyms. So here are a few that I will likely throw out. MFH stands for the Missouri Foundation for Health. That's the foundation I work at. And the cohort itself is called the Exemplary Advocate Cohort, or the EAC. The other acronyms I'll try really hard to be cognizant of, but it's the Request for Applications, Request for Proposals, and SPR is our evaluation partner. If I accidentally throw out those acronyms, please feel free to raise your hand and say, Megan, you are using alphabet soup. I don't know what that is. Most people on the call don't know what that is. Let's try this again. Some of our key players that are known to our EAC members are me and my supervisor, Nancy. We, on behalf of the foundation, our facilitation team, who are just consultants that we've, consultants that we've onboarded to help us do this work and to help facilitate conversations. And then our evaluation partners, SPR, or Social Policy Research Associates. We also have several folks working behind the scenes at the foundation, including just administrative teams, our finance admin team, and our learning research partners. Bigger considerations: the Exemplary Advocate Cohort was designed to be a microcosm of the field. So we tried really hard to get a diverse cohort when we were recruiting for this cohort. We tried to make sure that they were diverse in subject areas, as well as types of advocacy that they were doing, and the geography across Missouri. Unfortunately, like the field of advocates itself, it does lack racial diversity in a really big way. We caught that very quickly. There are some people of color, but it's not as diverse as many advocates would like for it to be, or staff for that matter. Another consideration when I'm just talking about the initiative overall is that we're actually in year 5 of a 5-year initiative. So we're not completely done with this initiative just yet. We're still working on it, and it's still going. And we have actually extended. So originally we were supposed to end this initiative at the end of this year, at the end of 2023. Now we've extended till the summer of 2025. Last but not least, a really big part of the narrative that's around this cohort is turnover at the foundation. That has definitely affected how the foundation, or how the cohort is operated, and what that has looked like. I also want to just note and name at the top of this conversation that I've been at the foundation for about 2 years now. So while this is a 5-year project, I've only been on it for 2. So a quick timeline, just very high level. In 2018, organizations were selected and they applied to join the cohort. Several applied, but we only accepted 12. In other slides, you might see 11 because one did end up having to quit just because of workload. In 2019, we onboarded our facilitators and our evaluators, and the cohort began. 2020 was a hot mess express, just like for everyone else. Unfortunately, the cohort really was supposed to meet in person. It's very much a convening based initiative. However, we had to go virtual just like the rest of the world, unfortunately. And we had quite a bit of staff changes. That is when our initial person who was working on this, our initial partner who was working on this at MFH, stepped back, and instead Nancy, my direct supervisor, ended up being the point person. Then we hired Accelerate Change, and we'll get into how we hired that consultant to help us build our strategic plan in 2021. In 2022, we began implementing the strategic plan, and now that it's 2023, I've jokingly said that everyone is happy and everything is perfect, but we've been doing a lot of really great work through that strategic plan, so it's been great. Something to note about the cohort, it was designed in an effort to actually center the voice of the advocates. The foundation wanted the cohort to be cohort owned and cohort led, so that the advocates' voices would be centered in all of the decision making and dollars spent. So this did not come without its challenges. One challenge, a few challenges to name them, was a lack of clarity and goals, and a lack of shared language, as well as unclear expectations. There was a lot of frustration, frankly, between the EAC, the foundation, and the facilitators, just not fully understanding how they wanted to achieve some of the broader goals. So the foundation just essentially said, here are some of our broad goals, and we want to figure out how to do this together. And that was really difficult without those specific expectations or those specific guardrails. Additionally, all of the EAC members had full-time jobs in addition to being a part of this coalition, and that just proved to be quite a challenge. That being said, there have been several great effects that have been long-lasting after, as a result of this sort of strategy spectrum. For example, the cohort has been quite centered around the opinions and the values of the cohort members. There has been quite a bit of power transfer, so they've been able to hire their own consultants. They've been able to have a lot of the decision-making power. There's been a creation of subcommittees as a result of some of the tension and some of the challenges, and that has included a healing team that was designed to help bridge relationships between cohort members, cohort organizations, and the foundation, as well as a design team that helped end up developing a creation of a problem statement and a mission statement, and led to the creation of our strategic plans. Just a note on this specific image, it was actually based off of Tuckman's stage of group development. So the strategic plan, I touched on it a couple times here. Also, please do not feel like you have to read this. I recognize that there's a lot of words on this slide. This is just an example of the fact that the Exemplary Advocates cohort was able to hire a consultant and then develop their own theory of change. So the process here, I mentioned that there was a subcommittee designed out of some of the, or pulled together out of some of the tension from the community. So that subcommittee that I'm going to call the design team worked together to co-write with a facilitator a request for proposals that we then put out to the public. After we've had a handful of proposals come in, then the grantees themselves, the cohort itself, not the foundation, actually worked together to decide on a consulting firm to hire to help develop the strategic plan. This firm was called Accelerate Change. Side note, big fan. And they worked together for 8 months with the cohort to develop what is now their strategic plan. Beyond the process, there were several wins. The first, and arguably the largest, is that they were actually able to sit down and decipher goals, while the foundation said, we want y'all to learn and we want you to grow equity in Missouri and across the state, and we want to see y'all grow as advocates. We didn't necessarily give them really specific guidelines or guardrails that they had to work within. So this helped them to really design a game plan to help them address some of the problem statement, some of the goals that were listed in that problem statement. And I have a couple of things that I can look at in the chat if you'll, but I will get back to those. Innovative practices resulting from using the cohort. The Exemplary Advocate Cohort has now guided several of our internal practices. This has included the program authorization that we develop every year. Each year, this program authorization is essentially a strategic plan for the department, as well as a budgeted plan and a timeline. So I'll use the example of one of our program authorizations was a 3-year plan on how and what we were going to fund. So not necessarily projects, but for example, we had one year where we said, we're going to only do power building projects, or we're only going to do grassroots type or fun type of grassroots projects. So while drafting our current program authorization, we actually were able to work with the Exemplary Advocate Cohort to try and learn a little bit more about what the field was thinking and feeling about our investments in our plan, to better so that they could understand what we were planning on doing, but we could also understand how this microcosm of the field felt about it. They also help co-design the request for application. So their own request for application. As I mentioned, we're re-upping their contract for an 18-month period, and we're co-creating that request that they're going to then respond to. We've had several conversations about best funding practices that are a little bit easier on the grantees as they apply. And so that's been really helpful to help guide internal practices across the foundation. Additionally, both formally and informally, they've helped design capacity and technical assistance training programs. So one example is that they talked about a lot of their struggles with turnover, especially during 2021, during the Great Resignation. And then the foundation was able to employ some folks who were able to discuss turnover and do very broad trainings across the field that were offered free of charge to participants. Another thing that they were able to do formally is that they were given a certain budget that they were then able to hire a consultant to come in and do actually a storytelling training. And now they're working on some team development trainings. And so in a few slides back, you saw that they had divvied up the work into 4 pillar groups. The first is called Shift Power. The second and third combined, and they are called Build and Share Capacity. And the last is called, Build and Share Power. And then the last is called Build Capacity. So the Shift Power group has been working on trust-based philanthropy recommendations for our foundation to actually work on with them and to employ. And then they're also working on an equity toolkit for other nonprofits in the state. And the Build Share Power group is working on a directory of advocates so that more advocates can be in touch. And then the Build Capacity group is working on some more trainings, including team development. Overall, we've learned about transparency as a practice, as well as how to relinquish some power and in an effort to gain trust with some of the grantees that we serve. We've also learned a lot about the value of guidelines and guardrails. There were a lot of times where tension really could have been avoided had we given better, communicated better some of our expectations and hopes. Last but not least, it's been really helpful to have the EAC as a guide, as well as a microcosm of the greater field of advocacy in Missouri overall. I've said a lot, I might be slightly over time and I apologize if I am. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to chat, and I'm happy to drop my information in the chat and or find people on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was awesome. And Gina, did you have a question
Yeah,
quickly
I
Megan?
put stuff in the chat for you, Megan. This is remarkable. It is something that I have dreamed about. How can we add effective advocacy to public health practice, field work? It is something we don't learn in school. It is incredible. I have been writing things up for the Obama Foundation to see if they would fund something like what you're doing. So I would like to continue working with you. Fantastic.
Oh,
The
thank you.
idea of sharing power, shifting power, collaboration, those are all critical things to community engagement. You are a winner, honey.
Oh, thank you. I'm really happy. This has been really fun, really just honestly a great pleasure to work on overall. I dropped my email in the chat. Please, please, please keep in touch. And thank you so much for your high praise. That's really sweet.
And just one final comment on this. I'm from Kansas City, and I also just want to compliment the foundation on your kind of alignment and coordination with the foundation here in Kansas City, which is making a similar shift.
Sorry, Frank, could you repeat that question?
Well, it wasn't a question. It was actually just a comment. I just wanted to thank the presenter on behalf of the whole Missouri Foundation for Health for their alignment and coordination with the foundation here in Kansas City, which is making a similar shift so that we're seeing the same kind of thing across the entire state.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry. Yes. The Health Forward Foundation is out there. Unfortunately, it's not in our, I don't want to say jurisdiction, but the way that we were translated into a health conversion foundation, we don't do a lot of work in KC, but we do work really closely with the Health Forward Foundation. And I agree, they're awesome.
Well, thank you so much again, Megan. We really appreciate you. Megan's contact information is in the chat, so feel free to reach out to her directly. If you have additional questions or comments, do feel free to drop them in the chat while we're still here. She can respond to you there. Jeannie, I am going to turn it over to you quickly. We have a few minutes for a brief engagement activity. We will have to forego our breakout sessions, but perhaps maybe we can roll that into one of our membership engagement activities in the next couple of months. But I will hand it to you for a few moments to give us a mini version of an engagement activity before we close.
Well, thank you, Shannon. So sorry to disappoint you. I can see all the tears about not being able to do these breakout groups now. Yeah, the important part of this meeting was having these presentations, and I think that they were fantastic. And so I don't mind putting aside the breakout groups. As Shannon said, we'll find other ways to do that. So what I thought we could do is there's two things. One is let's have a conversation about what inspired you. And what are you going to do with that inspiration? I mean, it's no good to just say, oh, gee, that was great. Now I'm going to go out and have a beer, you know? So what inspired you, and what do you plan to do with that inspiration? And at the same time, if you can be popping into the chat, what went well about this meeting? What would you suggest we change in future planning meetings? So I really prefer that people turn on their cameras, that we interact as people instead of as screens and fingers on the typewriter. So turn on your screens, turn on your mics. Don't stay on mute. Just jump in as you would in a conversation. Let's have a conversation. What inspired you, and what are you going to do with that inspiration? Well, I know what inspired Gina, and that was this last presentation about advocacy. I personally was very inspired about the storytelling because I think that's one way I learn is by listening to the stories of people who are living experiences that I haven't had. So I'm going to with inspiration, I'm going to try to find people to tell me their stories. And it was very helpful to think about, I need to do a little bit to make myself vulnerable so that they feel safe to be vulnerable back to me. So that's what I'm doing. Other folks, jump in.
I think
Jeannie,
that
I'm seeing
the,
somebody with their
right.
hand up.
Sorry,
Devin, I can't hear you.
Devin, we can't hear you. Devin?
I still can't hear you, Devin. You try unmuting again and seeing if you can, let me see. Try again. Oh. Maybe you can put it in the chat. Hey, inspiration.
Megan, I really appreciated your reflections. You know, I think like just talking about areas where there was confusion or where the result wasn't it, but I've heard so many people kind of turn on community members in that, but to say, hey, we didn't explain ourselves fully, we need to like go back and do this. And I just, you know, love to hear like just the muscle of like that reflection. So thanks for that.
Absolutely, and thank you as well. I think for me at least, and this goes hand in hand with the storytelling conversation. It's so easy to let yourself get bogged down when something doesn't work out immediately. And I think there's a lot of ways to quantify wins without that weren't maybe intended wins, if that makes sense.
So Devin has put into the chat, I'm inspired. Oops, here we go. I'm inspired by the bridging from inpatient, outpatient medical care to community. We are struggling in healthcare and need work like this, innovative approaches to serve our patients. Thank you, Devin. Padma says diverse topics. We went from poverty, early childhood education, advocacy, all that has basic community engagement woven into the fabric. Other inspirations. And Gina, you're on mute. You're on mute.
I just wanted to say to us all that as community workers, no matter how high up we get into our profession, and believe me, you can get up high. But the important work that we do is community engagement. That's the most important. If you don't engage with the community, they will not change behaviors. Some behaviors take 2 or 3 generations to change. I once had a grant to work in a public housing. I prefer working in public housing communities. That's just, and I did this even as a dean of students at a variety of colleges and places as a volunteer. I love working in public housing communities. So you go in and you have to remember that one of the most important things you can do in that situation is to identify local leadership and engage them in ways in which you find out who are the leaders coming up, and you build a community coalition board with them. And the other half of the board is made up of collaborators in terms of what they decide they want to work on. When you have a million things that are broken in your life, you get to pick which one you want to work on. Our job is to facilitate that. If you cannot engage your community, you will not create change. Information is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I am willing at some point to talk about, I've been writing a lot the whole time we've been talking about engagement, and I on the chat. And I am happy to, sometimes I've done it just to the individual speaker, but most times I've tried to do it to everyone. If there is a way in which I can talk to you about how to enter a community that is not yours, to create an engaged relationship in which you build trust, you build community leadership, you build community capacity, so that when you leave, they not only know how to prevent cardiovascular disease, violence, cancer, unintended pregnancies, any of the stuff we want to teach them, but they are stronger than they were before you entered. That is the job. Okay, I'm going to stop talking.
Always great to hear your 77 years of wisdom and experience, Ngina. And I think that you kind of summarized a lot that we heard, you know, whether it's the language learning and how to, you know, do that in the community, the Tennessee Community Health Councils, the, you know, Megan's presentation, the Filipino, all of them talked about how you begin to understand and work inside a community. Lena has a comment, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Shannon for a wrap up.
Thanks, Jeannie, and thanks to all the presenters. I work primarily in the policy area, and so I really appreciated that throughout all the presentations, there were, you know, that those pragmatic steps that we can take and real, you know, took the theory into action, and that we can, that in my role as a policy advocate, you know, I can take and I can share with legislators and really show the upstream value of all this, the community work that needs to be invested in. It's not an either or, it's a, you know, grassroots, grass tops meeting in the middle.
Thank you, Lena. Shannon, wrap us away.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for being with us today. Thank you to our presenters for being willing to share all the wonderful work that you are doing. I just want to wrap us up really quickly here. I want to again just remind everyone that we are trying to raise funds for the section. Your donations, whatever you are willing to share, goes to support our section activities every year, as well as scholarships for our students, our early career and our mid-career professionals, to help get them to our annual meeting so that more people can share all of this awesome work that we are doing as a section. We have some brilliant thought leaders here who are doing phenomenal work, and I think it makes so much sense to continue to share that as broadly as we possibly can. So I just want to put that out there. You can scan the QR code there and it will take you to a place to donate. So I will leave that there for a second. And then on the next page are our social media, all of those for those of you who like to do that. So I will go there here in just a second. Give you a second to get the QR code if you need it. All right. And